while we're waiting, I'll take the opportunity to thank some people who were really instrumental in putting this evening together. First and foremost, I want to thank S.D. Graham, who stepped up and organized all of the food and the arrangements this evening. Very much appreciated. Thank you. And also my wife, who helped a lot with the setup and supported me with all of this. I'm not going to mention other people because I'm going to leave somebody out. So you know who you are, and Steve knows who you are. So we'll be starting in a moment. Just so people know, after we make the siyum, we will then pause for people to get food, and then we'll have the speeches. And the programs you have on your table list all of our patrons, our sponsors. Support is very much appreciated. It's really a reflection of Steve, the outpouring of support for this event. And on the back of the programs is a list of everyone that learned for the siyum, enabled us to make the siyum on all of shishah mishnah. Okay. So I learned two masechtas for Steve's shloshim. One being Uktzin, which is the end of all of Mishnayos, and it's startlingly appropriate to Steve. By the way, I just do want to mention that I was listening to a shir this week by official Schechter, and he mentioned just incidentally, and there's apparently a machlokus about this, so I couldn't find confirmation. In fact, I found information that contradicted it. But according to him, this past week, Zos Hanukkah was the Yortz of the Abarbanel, which I thought was unbelievable. I was in my car, I was like, oh my gosh. But then Sheldon looked online, I looked online, we found some other dates in Av and Tishrei. It's apparently machlokes. But I'm convinced that if this is the week of Steve Shloshim, that the definitive opinion is that this is the week of the Abarbanel's Yortz. There's no question. I remember Steve would be like, the Abarbanel came, he told me that, it was an inimitable way. Anyway, so the last mishnah is remarkably appropriate to Steve and who he was. It starts out, it says, Amar Yeshua ben Levi, Asida Kadosh Baruch Hu L'hanchil L'chol Tzadik V'Tzadik Shloshim. I'm sorry. That the Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to give to every tzaddik will inherit 310 worlds. And it's brought down that what this means is that the reward that the tzaddik will get in Olam Haba is equivalent to 310, the pleasure of this world 310 times. And he also goes on, the Mishnah goes on to say, says, Lo matzah Kadosh Baruch Hu, at the end of the Mishnah, Klei machzik bracha Yisrael el HaShalom. The Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't find any vessel, so to speak, with which to contain brach, to strengthen bracha for the Klal Yisrael, except for shalom, peace. Hashem gives strength to his people. Hashem will bless his nation with peace. And so Steve was the gabbai forever. And I mean, I would say this often to people, and they would debate with me, but I really think it's true. I think being gabbai is much harder than being president. I would never have traded places with him. And it was remarkable. I was thinking back about it, and all the years that Steve was gabbai, I can't remember anyone ever getting angry at him. And it's, if you think about that, all the different simchas and, different events, and just there's so much opportunity to blast the gabbai. And there was just, even if he, because everybody, no gabbai is going to be perfect. Even when, he forgot to suddenly or whatever it was Steve. It's like, how are you going to get angry at Steve? It was just, he meant well, and he just, it's just his whole decorum and peace kind of, when I thought about this Mishnah, it personified who Steve was. So we can be certain that in the Olam Emes, the reward that Steve's receiving is just enormous because peace is who he was. Okay, so I'll make the siyum on behalf of everyone. As I said, then we'll take a break to take some food, and then we'll get on with the program. Adron alach shishah shel mishnah v'hadra chalan. Daitan alach shishah shel mishnah v'daitan alad. Daita chalan. Los nashim minach shishah shel mishnah v'los nashim minan lo ba'al ma'adem v'lo malka. Harav nad and Elohinu es divrei Torascha b'finu v'fios amcha beis Yisrael v'niya nakulanu v'nachnu v'tzetzenu v'tzetzei amcha beis Yisrael kanadi shmecha v'dei sorsech lishma v'yavei tzachagmenu mitzvosech ki lo mehili yili bi yitzamim b'chukecha l'man l'rivosh l'lam eshkach b'kudecha ki v'amchi yitzani baruch atah adonai l'mdeini chukecha amen 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 tzela Modim anachnu lefanecha and Elohinu v'le'avosenu shesamtecha ken miyoshvei beis hamidrash v'lo miyoshvei karanos Shana mashkimim mehem mashkimim. Anu mashkimim divrei Sora, hem mashkimim divrei B'Telim. Anu amelim behem anelim. Anu amelim mekablim sachar, hem amelim behem mekablim sachar. Anu ratzim behem ratzim. Anu ratzim b'chayel mabah, behem ratzim lever shachar shnemar, v'ata Elohim toridem lever shachas, anshe damim mermalo yechetzu yemehem bani eftach bach. Yiratzom lefanecha, Adonai Elohai kashem she'azartanu v'sayim shisha sidrei mishnah, kach tazreinu laschil sidrein l'sfarim achirim l'siyamam. L'mod l'amei, l'shmor v'sos l'keim es kol divrei tzamud Torah secha v'yahava. L'schus kol atanayin v'samidei chachanim nizkarim b'shesha sidrei mishnah tamod lanu l'zarenu shlo samush haTorah mikinu b'zarenu v'zer zarenu adalam v'kuam banu b'silach B'hishalecha tanche osach b'shachcha tishmor alecha b'hakitzosa hi s'shichecha kivi yerbu yemecha v'yosifo lecha shnos chayim Roshmi b'yimina b'smala osher v'chavod anay ozmo yitain anay brech zmo v'shalom Yiskadel v'yiskadesh shmei rabah b'yamad divrach B'yamad du asi lehis achadta ul'hachya mesaya ul'asaka yason l'chaye oma ul'nivnei kartav yushleim ul'shachlel hechaleh b'gava ul'me'akar pulchana nukra me'ara ul'asava pulchana dishmaya l'asra ul'mit kucha b'richu b'malkusei b'karei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chay d'chol beis Yisrael b'agalav izman kariv imru amen Yisbarak, Yishtabach, Yispoar, Yisramam, Yisnaseh, Yisadar, Yisalev, Yisalal, Shmei Kudashah, Barich, Leilam min Kober Chasa, V'shirasa, Tishlu Chasa, V'nechamasa, Damiran Bialma, V'imru Amen. Al Yisrael, V'al Rabbanan, V'al Tamidehon, V'al Kol, Tamidei, Samidehon, V'al Commandos, Kimbarai, Sadivas, Radem, V'chol Asar, V'asar, Yehi, Lahon, Ochon, Shlomo Rabba, China V'chista Barachamei, V'chai Richim, Uzan Revichei, Ufer Kanami, Kanuvun, V'shmaya, V'yara, V'imru Amen. Yehi, Shlomo Rabba, Mid Shemaya, V'chai Malin, V'al Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Malin, V'al Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Amen. Okay, so there's a buffet. People can help themselves to dinner. There is bread if people want to wash, and we'll resume shortly. Thank you. So one of my favorite stories from Steve was that people knew here in the shul that he would give psicha to anybody who was expecting at any point in the next 4 years, and so once in a while there'd be nobody in the shul who was known to be expecting. So one time he gave me psicha because there was nobody here, and so I'm walking back up to the bima behind the Torah. And David Cohen, Shalom, says to me, he goes, does Steve know something we don't know? I said, not unless he knows something I don't know. And that week we found out my wife was expecting.
Wow, what a skill.
The other one, some people here know about this, but not everybody does, so this might help explain things to certain people that never quite understood what was going on. Steve had the most amazing, hysterical, dry sense of humor. And he used to call me his favorite neighbor. We lived, next door for a number of years. And so I was sort of into, knew certain things he did. So one of them was that whenever there was a guest and he would give them the sikha, he would tell them before they went up, you have to be careful, don't pull it too hard, because the whole thing might come crashing down. So the person would get up there and gingerly be pulling on the string, and everybody's like, what is wrong with this person? And Steve would turn around and go. So that was Steve. Anyway, without further ado, I do want to call on some very close friends of Steve's to say a few words. This was actually at Shula's request. So first, Sheldon Meth can share a few words with us.
Thank you, Chaim. Rishus Harabonim, family and friends of our dear friend and chaver, Shlomo Reuven ben Aryeh Leib, Steve Koblin. Steve and Tibor L'chaim Tovim Elaine were already in White Oak when we moved in here over 40 years ago. And we were close friends the entire time. Steve's presence was constant and pervasive, so it's hard to talk about specifics. He was part of our everyday life. Steve was always an integral part of the community. His most obvious role was as gabbai for many centuries. Having been in that thankless position myself, and as Chaim also president, I agree with him that being gabbai is much harder than being president. I was always amazed and appreciative of his patience and perseverance in filling this daunting task. His personality was such that it made him perfect for that position. He was able to deal with the myriad simchas, yortzites, requests for kibudim, and requests to daven for the amud by those deserving and those not so much. He could diffuse egos with his deadpan humor, which many have spoken about. I remember Steve's famous line to people getting an aliyah. Steve would make the misha baruch and then ask the person how much they would like to donate. Here it comes. If the person would say matana, he would remind them that the gematria of matana is 495. His pleasant demeanor in carrying out his duties made it hard for anyone to complain about his sometimes inscrutable gabbai decisions. For example, during Chol HaMoed, the shul had 2 minyanim for shachars. Each minyan had 2 groups, one that wore tefillin and one that did not. Steve would schedule the first minyan such that the tefilliners were in one room of the shul and the non-tefilliners in the other. But for the second minyan, he would switch the rooms. Nobody could understand why he did that. My personal theory is that he found an obscure barbanel which revealed to him the hidden meanings of this mystical switch. Steve was a key member of our Shabbos afternoon Gemara learning group for many years. This group actually preceded my arrival as well. It's been going on for way more than 40 years. And Alan Sussman has been the capable leader of that group. But Steve was a key contributor to the discussions we would have and would frequently regale us with the words of the Abarbanel. I can see the two of them b'chavrusa in the Olam HaEmes. Despite the trials and tribulations of life, which we all undergo, Steve always had simchas hanefesh, a joyous soul. In the parsha that we read today, after Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, he tells them, V'yata al te'atzvu, Now do not be saddened or angry that you sold me to Egypt. These three words, v'ato al teatzu, are the source of much discussion by the commentators, primarily the Hasidic commentators, on the attribute of sadness and depression. They universally condemn this attitude as dangerous and inconsistent with the Jewish outlook. For example, Verishner says, it is forbidden for anyone who wishes to cleave to the Shekhinah to be steeped in sadness, and one who does not have simchas hanefesh is an indication that he is not in the proximity of the Shekhinah. Steve's simchas hanefesh was infectious. He would strike up conversations with everyone. He used his psychology background and expertise to empathize and give encouragement to all those he interacted with. He was a great friend and will be sorely missed. Yehi, zichro, baruch.
Thank you, Sheldon. Beautiful remarks. We'll call on Aaron Yaakov Alan Sussman to say a few words. I'm sorry. Got that wrong.
He came up anyway.
There's an old Indian proverb regarding some blind men and an elephant. Apparently, there was a village in which no elephant had ever been seen, and an elephant came to town, and the blind men went around to see what kind of beast this was. One of them happened to be near the trunk, and he said that the elephant was like a snake. One was near the tail and said an elephant is like a rope. Another one happened to be near one of the large legs and said, no, an elephant is like a tree. Our Chazal say that there is chachma b'goyim, that if you hear something that was said by goyim and it is chachma, that you can believe it. And the chachma in this fable has nothing to do with blind men and nothing to do with elephants. Each person sees the world through the prism of his own experiences and his own way of relating. When it comes to a human being, especially a very special person like Steve Koblin, everybody related to him in their own unique way. It is a daunting task for me seeing all the wonderful people, the so many people who knew Steve in so many different ways, to presume to get up in front of you and try to represent you all. It's not possible. I will tell you that I will try to relate how I knew Steve in my own way. And to all of you who would say that I left out a lot, you're right. I apologize in advance. Anybody who knew Steve knew about his sense of humor, and it's been related already. There's a Gemara that says that Rabbi Meir first learned from his teacher Rabbi Akiva, and after learning for a while, he just couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't flowing, he had to give up, and he had to go and relearn all the mishnayos from Rabbi Yishmael. And then after he learned through all the mishnayos of Rabbi Yishmael, he went back to Rabbi Akiva and said, okay, and then he got it. What was it about the teaching of Rabbi Akiva that he couldn't get? Because Rabbi Akiva would say halachos that were right, and he would also say halachos that were not correct. And the way he juxtaposed them, he expected you to be on a level that you knew which one was right and which one was wrong and why, and then you could get it. And then Rabbi Meir became the same type of teacher. And I was thinking about that, and I said, oh my God, that's Steve. He would say the most outrageous things to you that if you didn't know him, you would say, who is this guy? But after you knew him, all of a sudden, everything began to make a lot of sense. And it really made you feel a lot better. And this is very important. The Gemara relates that Rav Baroka once was speaking to Eliyahu Hanavi. And Eliyahu Hanavi said, see those two men who just passed? They are Ben Olam Haba. Why? So he ran after them and asked why, and they said, we are jesters. We speak to people who are sad, and we make them feel better. And when they have a machlokas, we help resolve the machlokas. And Eliyahu said, that makes a person royal olam haba. If there's anyone who did that, it was Steve. And I will relate some of the things that he said on various occasions with the possibility that I will be tarnishing my reputation for a long time. So what do we know about Steve? Steve was the gabbai. Now, that doesn't sound too hard. I mean, everybody's been part of a minyan before, a pickup minyan. Okay, we have 10 people here. You be the gabbai. And you find a Kohen, you find a Levi, and Yeshikaya, very good. I was, like Sheldon, I was the gabbai of this shul for 2 years. And I want to tell you, it is really, really hard. So what does a gabbai do? Well, first of all, you have to know everybody in shul. You have to know everybody's name, and you have to know if they're a Kohen or a Levi. You have to know who their parents are. You have to know who their in-laws are. You have to know who's in shul. That's your job. When I was gabbai, I could name everybody in shul, first the name and father's names. Of course, back then there were only 10 people in the shul. But Steve did that. The first part of knowing people is knowing their names. And Steve knew everybody. He made it his business. It was his job. You also had to know the people's families. And Steve did that too. And then you also had to know in depth who the people were. So that becomes the gabbai in his caring position. What is the tehuna of a person? What is his temperament? Does he like to daven? Does he not like to daven? Does he like to daven on certain occasions? What things would set him off? What things would insult him? But you have to know that. And no ordinary person would do that. And Steve's job transcended that to not only telling people, oh, well, why don't you daven, or why don't you lane, or whatever, but he wanted to build you up. Nobody who ever davened for the Ummah during Steve's tenure did not hear the words afterwards, you're not getting older, you're getting better. That's what he used to say to everybody. And, everybody laughed, but that's what he meant. That was really true. When my father, zichro levracha, used to come to shul, my father had been a Baal Koreh for most of his life. And Steve knew that. And he was always trying to get my father to come out of retirement. He said, why don't you lane tonight, or something like that. And my father would say, no, it's okay. And he would keep pushing and pushing because he wanted to bring him out of his shell, and he wanted him to be part of what was going on. Personally, it always made me feel really, really wonderful. And that was Steve. He cared about the people who were there, and he wanted to build them up. Steve was always thinking of the shul. And he was always thinking of the shul financially. He was always trying to raise money for the shul, as we heard allusion to. So if you were the Baal Koreh, Steve was always reminding you, smile when they get an aliyah, they give more money. All right, so here I go into treacherous ground. Steve was a member of the Chevra Kadisha for many years. Now, many of us are also members of the Chevra Kadisha, and we know it can be a difficult job. It can be a somber job. But Steve saw to it that people didn't get too down about it, and he made sure that he wanted to lighten up their feelings afterwards. Steve never went to a tahara without the next morning relaying to everybody who was into this, and then some, about how the tahara went. And it always ended with, and at the end, the mace got up and thanked us. Now, people know that, okay, Steve, on his team, and this was something that only his team did, there is a halacha or a minhag that instead of washing the mace as he lies on a table, there is a much more difficult procedure where two people, they lift the mace up and they pour water as he's standing. It's called amida, not surprising. And if you were on Steve's team, you had to bring fisherman's boots and raincoats, etc., if you were like that. And I think he was the only team who did it. And he did that for many years. Now, you know that I have been the Baal Musaf for a while. One of Steve's, so after I go down Korim, every time that you do, two people come to help me get up. And Steve was one of them. And one time he said, now you know what it's like to be lifted by my team. Steve, as Sheldon said, Steve was a member of our learning group, the Chevra Shas, which we had for many years. And Steve always was a very enthusiastic participant. And I should add that for many years, we used to meet in each other's homes. We would go on a rotating basis, and we met at Steve's home when it was time. And Steve always was very proud of his set of Sefarim. And when he wanted a new set of Sefarim, and Elaine wasn't quite at that point yet, he would speak to each person in the group individually and get us to say, how come there's no Rambam in this house? And eventually there was a Rambam in his house. Steve, after he left this city, he still came back. He would come back pretty often. And, I always felt that he didn't really leave. In fact, I'm not sure that he's left, actually. If he would walk in tomorrow and take his seat, I would be surprised. We always felt that he was still among us. And I have to say that when Steve left our learning group, and when he left the shul, he left pieces of himself behind. So, for example, in our learning group, there were 2 Gemaras that he owned, which were art scroll Gemaras in Hebrew, because Steve loved learning in Hebrew. And he left them to the group. And they're in shul. In fact, one of them is at the table over there. And whenever I come to shul to prepare for the learning group, I pick Steve's Gemara off the shelf, and I see his name in it, and I think of him. And I think, okay, this is Steve's Gemara. This part of him is still with us. I know he left his talus here that is used by many of the Bali Tefillah. I've heard the expression, Meis echad min hachabura, yidag kol hachabura. If someone from a group passes away, everyone in that group should worry. I always wondered, what did that mean? What am I supposed to worry about? And I always said, like, well, don't worry, I'm already worried. That's not a problem. But I think when you are part of a group, especially this type of group, we all came here about approximately the same time. We all went through the same experiences. We all laughed together, we cried together. We went through so much in building up this community. And when someone from our group leaves, he takes a little piece of us with him. It's one less person that you can go over to and say, do you remember ... And when you do that, you validate your past. You know, you remember a lot of things, and we're always asking each other, do you remember this, do you remember that? Because when we do that, we validate each other's past. Yeah, I was there, I remember that. And when someone dies from our group, that's just one link that's severed. I know you all feel the same way, and I know that we all miss Steve. I want to close on one note. This past week was Hanukkah, and the last stanza of Moasur I have always found to be very, very moving. It starts, Chasok zeroa kodshecha, stretch out your holy hand, v'karev, and bring forward Kates HaYeshua, the end of the salvation. And I said, what? The end of salvation? What do you mean? That the salvation is supposed to be the end of times. What do you mean the end of it? And then I started wondering, perhaps, could it be that everything that's going on now, and that has gone on for a long time, is part of the Yeshua? It's not like Hashem is just like playing cards and saying, oh God, it's time for the Yeshua. No, it's going on right now. And all the sadness that we've experienced in our families, in our community, in our national consciousness, it's part of the Yeshua. It's happening. We say that Yeshua Hashem Keherifayim, and it will appear that way, but it's happening. It's so painful, it hurts so much, but the Yeshua is on the way, and what we are davening for is the Kates HaYeshua, the culmination, and may that come very soon, and may we all be reunited. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alan. We'll take a short break so people can get a little more food. There's some dessert out. I just do want to remind me of a couple more things about Steve I want to mention. One is that with the talus that was mentioned that was left here, he would always say to you when you give you the talus, you know, this is the talus of a great tzaddik. And so that was, right. And I just forgot the other one I wanted to tell you. So, I'm sorry?
When Steve left, he gave me his shtender on 3 conditions. One of the conditions was that anytime he comes back to visit, he can use the shtender. It's very appropriate tonight. I don't think the speakers realized, but this is Steve Stender. And so, in a sense, he is here using his shtender.
Okay, so we'll take a short break. People can get some dessert, some more food, and then we'll resume. Thank you. So when I was thanking people, there is one other thank you that I really do need to give, and that's to Yehuda Katz, who arranged all of the videoing and the live streaming. Thank you. I did remember the other thing I wanted to mention, which is that Alan was talking about reminiscing with Steve, which was a very unusual thing to do with Steve, because Steve had many past lives that many of us didn't know much about. I mean, he had been a basketball star, he had been an electrician, he'd been a plumber, professionally. And he would often boast of the fact that he changed the light bulb by himself from his electrical training. There's a very famous, one of the most famous things with Steve. I was asked to say over, and I wasn't going to, but I remember there's another piece of it that I can tell that many people don't know. So one of the most famous things with Steve was that as gabbai, when someone would come up and after they'd done Hagbah, the person was rolling out the Torah, would say, "Did I ever tell you about the Hagbah that I had in Eretz Yisrael? It would take 3 people to lift up this Torah. And was I daunted? Was I afraid? No. I lifted it up myself." And so this went for years. And once, in a weak moment, Steve told me it was actually about this big. Because I did want to call on Zev Teichman. It's a bit of a misnomer. I call this a presentation to the family. It's something actually for the shul, but it's something very meaningful that we think the family will appreciate. I wanted to call on Zev to make this presentation.
I wanted to preface the presentation with a similar anecdote that Chaim had, that the shul years ago had this fundraising program of oranges. There was a giant truck that would come up the driveway with oranges. And I remember one time Steve was saying, "This truck, I picked it up myself and moved it up the driveway." But he was a personal reflection for me. He was a person that was Otzek V'Tzarchei Tzibor B'Emunah. As Alan documented with Kadisha, we all know with Gabbai. Who knows what else he might have done under the radar. And he was a tremendous honor. He did not seek any self-aggrandizement, any accolades for what he did. He did it all. It was very pashut, and he was very genuine in how he approached the position. I had the privilege of being honored at the same banquet that when they honored him at the 87th banquet of the shul upon his pending departure from our community to move over to Eretz Yisrael. And even then, I remember he was very squeamish and squirmy about the whole. He didn't really crave the limelight. It chased him. Cover chased him. He didn't chase cover. As was mentioned, also there are a lot of little souvenirs around the shul, and that's what this presentation is all about. I look at that bima and I see the right side, the right side of it. I'm sorry, from my perspective, the right side, and I still see Steve standing there. He was a fixture on the bima when I first came to the community. He was Gabbai Sheni, and then eventually he ascended to the Gabbai Rishon role, and so he was always part of that bima over there. And the presentation has to do with somebody, we had an Aliyah here a few weeks, a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, and we have a cover that we used called a Bein Gavra that we put on the Torah between Aliyahs. And we noticed, it's very disheveled and not the most attractive piece of cloth that the shul possesses. We were brainstorming, I was brainstorming with H. Saltzman, because he was the one who had the Aliyah and was like really turned off by the appearance of this shmata that we put on the same Torah. So anyway, he commissioned to have a new Ben Gavra done, and we brainstormed and we said, Steve was such a fixture on this bima. What more appropriate item could we have as a fixture, continuing to have a fixture on the bima, than a Ben Gavra, which we had made over here in Steve's memory, Zichro Nishmas Shlomo Reuven Koblin. And we want the family to know that although Steve will not be here in spirit, he will be here in some form, and his name will be a fixture on our shul bima for as long as we can foresee. There's a little bit more on behalf of the family than what's shown here, but first, Shuli has agreed to say a few words on behalf of the family.
Kind of makes it real. My cousin tonight actually asked me what I was planning to say, and I told her I really had no idea. And she said, "What? You didn't write anything?" And I said, "How could I write something?" Because it was my father who was a speechwriter for the entire family. Every bar mitzvah, almost every Shabbat, my father wrote all the speeches. So how could I even supposed to? So I just figured I was going to come up, and everybody knows everything from, like Sheldon said, centuries of living here. But as many of you know, when you're sitting shiva, you learn all of these things that you never knew. And I was lucky, and I was able to sit with my brother and my mother in our and the mere fact that there's even people in this room is kind of weird, because it seemed to me on a daily basis with the hundreds of people who came through the house there that every single person from Silver Spring moved to Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't you, it's your kids who took time to come, and there were my little sisters who came, and in the tears there was a lot of laughter, and the neighbors who lived downstairs were two friendships of years who all were able to see my father's gabbai because of a very dear childhood friend of mine, those women. He and his wife were my spies. I made sure that if my father was weak or not feeling well, somebody at the shul would always be there to kind of just make sure that he was okay. And it was to those that I turned when I said, "I know I'm not going to make it in time for the Levaya, so can you record it for me?" And hearing the crying and the laughter, because there were so many things that were said by so many people, you heard the sobs of a childhood friend, and it made everything very real. And I just, they raised an amazing child, and all of you who are here should also be aware that there's, between me and my brother, well over 250 messages from your kids that came through with stories from your kids, whether it's from Avinet, from Yossi Charner. They took the time out to leave messages about personal messages that my father had said to them, and these are going to be printed into a book so my mother can have them. But while we were sitting Shiva, my mother actually said that she thought my father had a whole other life that she didn't know about. The life that he led here as gabbai put him in the limelight, not necessarily that he wanted or craved. And when they moved to Eretz Yisrael, he was just going to be a regular guy in shul. And my mother was wondering if he was going to miss it, and he said not very much. She confessed during Shiva that she's the one, I think, who missed it, because she had no idea who people were. He didn't even know where my father sat. Somebody actually went to take a picture of his seat because the way the shul is constructed, she never would have even seen where he sat. It was not even a possibility. So somebody brought her a picture of his malka. And it came out that all these chasadim that we knew my father did here, he did seemingly tenfold there. There is a divorced woman raising a family, and she was making a bar mitzvah. And unbeknownst to my mother, my father bought the boy his suit and his hat, and school supplies, and made sure they had snacks for lunch, and all of these things that you just hear about, and my mother has no idea even who this person is. All of the friends, my father really, really, really was very angry. He just wanted the gun. We all know that, but he really wanted to join the army, and they wouldn't let him. He really only wanted the gun. That was it. And they wouldn't let him, but he has friends whose children are serving, and he started a tzedakah fund for them, for their safety, that they should be safe. He gives special tzedakah for those sons. He's always worried about him. And just like all of these things. And he had left me a message 2 weeks before he was lifted that he was so happy that he was able to resume going to see his Holocaust survivor. And Sunday of Shiva, the door opens and this woman walks in and she had her aide with her, and you just knew this was who he always talked about. She was 97 years old. He had left a message on Sunday that he would see her on Monday as usual. And he never made it. And he was missed on Tuesday. He was already in the hospital. He wasn't feeling well. And she came. She was 97 years old. She went to visit Holocaust survivors. The hospice work that he did here as a little girl that I never truly understood, and now, unfortunately, I understand what it means. I didn't just lose my father, I lost my mother-in-law last week. And now, seeing how she was in hospice, I could really understand the special person and the strength that my father had to do what he did. And it really takes a very special person to be able to sit with somebody and to have that kind of prayer. And he still did that in our stroke. He still was a hospice volunteer. Because he couldn't become the soldier, and he still wanted to be macho, he went to Hadassah. He volunteered with the soldiers there. Whether they were wounded, whether they were having a baby, whether they had a nose job, he was there. And he would tell us all of the stories about this. And in order to go to his places, and his weekly treks to the kotel, and his steady minyanim that he had there, and my son was learning in Israel for 2 years and was lucky enough on a weekly basis to have a mincha date with my father at the kotel. He had his makom kavua there. All these treks took a toll. From Beit Shemesh to Yerushalayim is not an easy trip. A bus ride. Some of you know my parents' apartment, and there's a hill to walk up. My brother could tell you that when we were sitting Shiva, this man walks in, and he just looked so dumbfounded and like a lost puppy dog. And my mother asked him his name, and he told her, and she asked how my father knew you, and he said, I was watching your husband, how at the end of the early minute in the morning, he would like rush out, and one time I saw him walking to the bus. From then on, I rushed out as well because he was not going to walk to the bus. I was going to drive him to the bus. And my mother jumped out of her chair and she said, oh my God, my husband used to call you my mala. And he just crumpled. And the only thing that I could tell him to make me feel remotely better is really the truth. that all the chasadim he enabled my father to do, he has a schos in all of that. I just want to end by saying how things kind of come full circle, and like I said before, so many people from Silver Spring round up in Eretz Yisrael, no matter where they are. It was great to see Ruthie and Angie Weiser, who I haven't seen since I was, 7, but I'm not under that circumstance. But everybody came. From the Altos to the Gorlins, the people who were just there visiting. I can't even tell you how amazing it was to have that amount of support, and how happy I am that my mother has a wonderful group of friends that she made there that will take care of her. But one of the families that's there, there's actually 2 families that are there. I don't know who would remember, before we had Shabbos groups, they kind of bust in leaders. And one of my Shabbos group leaders was Elisa Kahan. So she's a neighbor of my mother. And there's another family there, Shashlovich. I don't know if anybody will remember them. So Avram Shashlovich lives also right there. I'm sorry because I am going to lose it right now, so I'm just going to apologize in advance. I don't know how many of you are aware. On Hoshana Rabbah, in Eretz Yisrael, there were 4 boys from the neighborhood who were going to one of the yeshuvs to be Mesameach for Simchas Torah. One of the boys was Elisa Kahan's son, who was injured, but is Baruch Hashem on the mend and at home. Another one of the boys is the head of this organization, Yad Sarah, where my father went to volunteer. A 4th boy is on the mend. I don't know his name, don't know his family. And the other boy is my parents, as you all know, were very, very far from tech savvy. My mother learned how to use the DVD player the week, she learned how to use the VCR the week we got a DVD player. So this WhatsApp and this iPhones and all this newfangled technology was not for my parents. And my father had this seat in school, and just like I got all of these messages from your children, we were getting messages from parents telling stories from their children and their children coming. And my mother was surprised because she didn't know that my father had such an involvement with the teens in the school. And he was like the baby to a lot of them. And there was this boy. And he came to the house many times. And he loaded all the apps, and he had the patience of a saint with my parents, teaching them how to do it. This boy is Avram Sassowitz's son. They sat next to each other in school, and they're buried next to each other. And they came to a circle, and it's kind of fitting that the way my father looked over him and looked out for him in school, my father will still look after him. Very painful knowing that it's one of my childhood friends. But somehow it gave great comfort to myself and to Avram and Regina Sassowitz's. And he had a wonderful life here. He gave us a wonderful life. I'm lucky enough to be married to my husband only because I'm the person my parents raised me to be. And I thank all of you, all my extra moms that y'all know because I called you growing up. Because without you guys, I wouldn't be here either. So thank you for everything you've done for us always, and I know you'll continue to do. And all I can say is that the love has got my back.
There are no words. Elaine forwarded a letter that she wanted to have read here tonight, and Michael Hoffman has agreed to read it for us.
I'm going to read the letter, and then I'll have a couple of words to say after that. Just because Shane and I have been living in Israel for 4 years does not mean that our knowledge of Hebrew has improved, so when I mispronounce the word, we'll all understand. And I will put on my glasses. All right, this is entitled My Tribute to the Greater Southeast Hebrew Congregation. And she writes, this was written 3 days ago. Unfortunately, PNC has stopped. That's not what she wrote, that's what it said on Chaim's phone. It is with, I hope this is going to work. It is with profound sorrow amidst tremendous gratitude to the greater Southeast Hebrew community that I write these words. This Friday, please God, this has already happened obviously, we will hold the shloshim here in Israel with Hakamat Motzaei and the siyum, mishnah, and Sudat Mitzvah. Years ago, Steve would inform each incoming president of the shul that he wanted to be buried in the back of the shul with a pyramid. Now, just as an aside, I was a former president of the shul. I never remembered the pyramid. I was always wondering how it was going to be under the asphalt, but that's a different issue. When the mikveh was built, he had to think of another place, perhaps behind the chocolate store, as he had hoped on Emek Ravine in Jerusalem. Again, just as an aside, Elaine would try and prevent Steve from having chocolate. Steve was hiding chocolate in his sephora. Elaine would find them when she was cleaning for Pesach. Again, back to Elaine. His kever lays facing the beautiful hills of Beit Shemesh with words which personify his midah. Now, here we go. Ish Yirei Elokim B'mishpachto Tamid Tamim Misor Mekilato gabbai Beit Knesset Tov Lev Rodev Chesed Ivev Matseva Viola Minachar Letzion. I hope that makes some sense to some people. When we first made Aliyah, I would repeatedly ask him if he missed being gabbai. He always replied that just sitting in a seat as an ordinary person was now enough. Again, an aside, we visited Steve and Elaine frequently, and there, behind him, there was this family with a young kid. And as this kid was growing up, every Hanukkah, Steve would say to the kid, before Hanukkah, if you've been good, your parents are going to give you a brand new car. And every year he would find some reason that the kid had misbehaved, did something, and said, okay, but maybe next year. It never worked out. This kid, by the way, he prayed for because he went into the army, and he and that family were very close. In Silver Spring, Steve would relate all the goings-on of the shul, and I had a real sense of his role. Little did I realize that in the span of almost 9 years here, Steve carved out a place of his own within the shul minyan. During the Levaya and Shiva, many related, quiet, unassuming acts of tzedakah had been done by Steve. His love for Israel and the Hebrew language, coupled with divrei Torah from the Abar Banel and Dor Revi, were his favorite pastimes, whether riding on the buses to and from Jerusalem or quietly davening at the Kotel. Again, an aside, he did not sit quietly on the bus. He would end up talking to people sitting next to him, and many of them would look at him in a very strange way. Who is this guy? Usually, though, he tried to give them a Devar Torah, usually from the Abar Banel, or if they were a Rabbis, he would try and get a Devar Torah from them. He was perhaps the only individual who, in addition to putting in many tefillach from his long list of kolim, added one for the American dollar. Again, an aside. Stephen, the dollar has been too weak against the shekel. When it was 3.9, he was very happy. As it sunk, his tefillos increased. Right now, I'm telling you, this is all true. If he didn't have a strong dollar, he would get very upset. His recent illness robbed him of his energy to continue in his role of a volunteer, volunteer to the hospitals, hospice soldiers, home visiting, and Holocaust survivors. He was both humbled and saddened by the immense fundraising efforts on his behalf. And as many of you may or may not know, because of the special medication that he needed for the cancer, it was very costly. It was not something that was included in the basket of medication. And so the community here and many people helped pay for that, and both Elaine and he were very, very grateful. He was humbled and saddened by the immense fundraising efforts on his behalf. No words can express the love and support we have received from both our communities. May his many acts of chesed serve as a merit to his Eloi Nishmato, Steve Koblin, and family. I just want to end by saying a couple of things. First, the Shuli and Lay. This hasn't really been mentioned, but obviously he loved you both very, very much. And through thick and through thin, and you all know about the thick and the thin, and he had his own opinions, by the way, as you well know, as to what was going on, and he felt that you should have the freedom to do, this is what I say to my kids, you had the freedom to do what you wanted to do, as long as you did what he wanted you to do. You always had that freedom. But through thick and through thin, he loved you very, very much, and he stood by you and always did what he felt was best for you, and that was just his nature. And I wanted to say something, as long as we're looking into the camera, I wanted to say something to Elaine, because she's been mentioned a little bit, but obviously they were very much in love. If I remember correctly, Shani will correct me, I think they were married for close to 48 years, something like that, 48 years. And it was really a perfect match. Elaine would go away on a trip, and Steve would really enjoy his vacation. It was something always very, right, Elaine? I'm telling you the truth, Elaine, you know that. But frequently he would go with her on vacation, and he always enjoyed riding on the buses, not so much getting out and schlepping to the museums and things like that, but it was always, but they were always together, and they were always a perfect match. And she was never Elaine, she was Elaine, and he was never Steve. Steven, that's how it, I like that, didn't you? That's how it went. So to you, Elaine, we know this is a tremendous loss, obviously, for Shuli and Leib, but for you, it is obviously a day-to-day, daily loss. But his memories will be a blessing. You'll remember all the good times. And whether you remain in Beit Shemesh, by the way, all of you should know that it was really Steve who wanted to move to Israel. Elaine, right, Elaine? You were never really in favor of that, were you? I didn't think so. So there was always talk, well, will they move back, or whatever it is. But she has a very close community there. She has many good friends there. She has many good friends here. And whatever you decide to do, Elaine, you will have all those wonderful memories of Steve and something special that will remain with you, and he will always be thinking of you up there. And if you do decide to remain in Israel, you will know one thing. You will always continue to pray for the American dollar. Nice phone time.
What a gift we can't see up anymore. Thank you, Michael. Shortly we'll bench. We'll take a bit of a break. I just really want to thank everyone for coming and making this such a special and meaningful event. Shloshim is a very good friend of all of us. He'll certainly be missed. Thank you. Oh, one other thing, I'm sorry. I wasn't going to say anything about it, since it was brought up. People should know that it was really remarkable, the amount of money that was raised in a period of literally a few weeks. And it didn't all come to this community. It came from probably around the world, but I'd say the vast majority came from the greater Washington area. There was over $40,000 raised for Steve. These treatments were $10,000 a piece. And so there are people in this room that gave very substantial sums of money. And so on behalf of their families, I want to thank you.